Yoga Nidra, and if you're just now joining, welcome. I'm so happy to see you here, and we'll go ahead and get started in about 3 minutes and wait for others to join, and go ahead and get started if you haven't done so as far as setting up. So I have my mat, and I have blocks, and I have a little cushion. I'm just going to use that as a pretend bolster, and feel free to bring any other props that you'd like to help support. You can bring a strap as well. We will do some more strap work in the future, and if you haven't noticed, on our website on Truvefit.com there are on-demand classes for every single specialty and area that you can think of, and it's $1 for the first week to sign up. And then after that, I believe it's $30 a month. You can access on-demand classes, including mine. I teach a yoga yin practice, yin and restorative, as well as senior strong for any seniors that you know in your family or friends that would like to access yoga online and get the best benefits. So yes, on-demand is happening right now, and we have lots of classes that you can access. And also, of course, joining live. So we'll wait about a couple more minutes, see if anyone else is going to join, and we'll go from there. I'll go ahead and get started by taking a nice, comfortable space and seat into my cushion. If you don't have a cushion, you can also use the block, laying the block down. Usually just sitting on one block is sufficient enough. It'll help open up the hips and tilt your pelvis. If you haven't done yoga for a while, that is okay. We're going to work on yin practice, and although yin can be known or thought of as a very easy yoga, it is definitely intense. So if you notice some muscle soreness, or if you notice any some not pain, but just a little bit of noticing some opening areas in the hips, or you're noticing that you feel like you've done some kind of workout, you can count on it that it is the yin practice, because we will be moving deeper into the connective tissue, and we're doing so with the breath, aligning breath and movement for your practice. Great. So here I am sitting on a cushion just to open up, because I'm going to come into Sukhasana, which is legs crossed. And as my legs are crossed, one ankle in front of the other, I try to keep them even so that way we're not tilting one hip over the other. And as you find a comfortable space, we're going to move into a practice of what we call pranayama. Prana practice is a very nice and therapeutic practice, because it just basically is breathing. But when you're applying breath and producing energy, you're creating and acknowledging and knowing and finding mindfulness into your practice where there is energy. You'll start to notice energy around you. You'll notice energy inside through you. You'll even notice if there is an energy in the room that you might have just picked up. So as we practice pranayama, we're going to move deeper into the breath. So as you find a comfortable space in your seat, you can also sit down on your heels in Virasana, also known as hero pose, as so. Where you're sitting on your heels, you want to keep your seat evenly, both seated bones on your heels, and then you're going to place one big toe over the other. That is the Virasana. That's for anyone who has a lot of tightness in the hips, where coming into Sukhasana where the legs are crossed are a little bit challenging. Great. All right. And when you are ready, go ahead and close your eyes and find a comfortable space. However you are seated and grounding into the earth, the mat, a block, or anything beneath you, I'd like you to start with a blank slate. Try to empty your mind. As you close your eyes, notice and scan what is around you. Do you notice any sounds? Do you notice any taste in your mouth? What do you smell? What do you feel? And as you move into the breath, you're going to take a deep breath in and inhale, opening up through the shoulders. You could even roll your shoulders up and back to readjust any posture that you have going on right now. You want to keep the spine erect. You want to keep it straight up as much as possible, because that's what's going to help increase the flexibility in the spine and the vertebra. So that is the vertebra plays a huge part in yoga. Take a deep breath in, inhale for 4. Expand the lungs, let the belly fall. Just relax the belly, and as you exhale, count for 6. Draw the belly in towards the spine as if you're holding your breath in. What you're doing is you're actually releasing the breath, releasing old energy to exchange for new. Take a deep breath in again. Notice the rise and fall of your navel. Until you have no more breath to spare, take a deep breath in again, expand the lungs, inhale here. And let out a sigh, exhale, let go, release. When you take the time to build a mindful practice, you are actually taking a pause and really allowing your mind to relax and allowing the body to relax, and you're aligning the breath and body and mindfulness to just come together as one. So this is really nice that if you could take the time out between, if you have a 3-minute practice to a 50-minute practice, I encourage you to do so. Whether at home or if you're back at the office, wherever you are, feel free to create that space. Even if you're meditating in the car, move in with the breath. Take a deep breath in again. Inhale for 4. Expand the lungs and hold. Exhale. Let go. Release. Inhale again. And again, take a deep breath in, inhale for 4. And exhale for 6 counts. We're going to be here for a few more breaths. I'm just going to check in to see if anyone has joined. Hi, Gerald. Hi, Allison. Hey, Rosa. I'm so glad that you joined, and hopefully you can hear me better this week than last. We are working on pranayama practice. And as you can see, Rosa, we are out of the studio tonight for this evening. So this is also a good time while you are practicing prana, exchange of energy, breath of life. You are actually allowing your mind to just start to untangle. You're starting to just let go of anything that could be causing some anxiety or causing some tension or even causing some confusion, especially during this time. So not to bring too many thoughts into your mind, but this is a good time to lower the chatter in the brain, because our mind keeps going and going and going, even through our sleep. The chitta vritti is what we call it, and it's the mind monkey. There's like a monkey going on in our mind, and it's just constantly chatter, and it's constant chatter. So you actually have control to be able to lower down the chatter and relax your mind and empty anything that's heavy going on, physically as well as emotional and mental. Couple more breaths here. Take a deep breath in, inhale here and hold. Deep in the breath. Soft and deep. Inhale here. Feel the expansion of the lungs, the rise of the chest, and as you exhale, you're going to round your spine, round your back, trying to let all the air out, letting the breath release here. Take a deep breath in again. Beautiful. Usually I start class with an Om, so feel free to whisper an Om, sound out an Om, just give yourself an Om. You can give it out in the space that you're in. Take a moment, take a deep breath in and Om. Very nice. With eyes closed still, let's bow down towards the earth, right in front of you, reaching your hands in front, fingertips softly onto the ground. And whether you're sitting on your heels or you have your hips open, I'd like you to just reach as much as possible without lifting off or lifting off from your hips. Try not to lift your hips up. You want to keep them stable. You want to keep them grounded. And as you do this, go ahead and walk your hands over to the right side and just notice any sensations going on. Connect with your breath as you do so. So you want to stay with your breath as you inhale. You're going to move to the right or move to the left. Exhale here, release. And walk your hands back over to the other side. If you feel like you're lifting too much from the hip, just back away a little bit and readjust when needed. And feel free to modify anything that I'm demonstrating in the class. You are your own teacher. I'm just here to bring out the guru from you. So please feel free to modify whatever you need, because again, this is an open class. And reaching over to the other side, keep a bend in both elbows. You don't want to lock any joints. And returning back to center, walk your hands back towards the hips. We're now going to come in and raise our arms up and circle them up. Keep an arch into the back, into the spine. So it's almost like you're sticking out your seat, whether you're sitting in Sukhasana or in Virasana. You're going to reach over to one side. Exhale here, release. You're going to reach one arm over to the other side. So if it's the right arm, you're going to reach towards the left. You're going to open up the space where the rib cage is, where the ribs sit at. You want to open up those intercostal spaces, or those little grooves in between the rib bones. And I exhale, coming back, both arms down, reaching all the way up. Lengthen here through the spine. And exhale here, reaching to the other side. When you're ready, for the in-breath, you're going to reach that arm over to the other side. Try to keep the hips stable. Exhale here, return back to center. Reach all the way up, circle those arms up, and come into a nice side bend. As you come into a side bend, again, keep your hips grounded as much as possible into the earth, onto your mats or your block. Inhale back up and exhale to the other side into another side bend. This is another way to open up the space where the ribs sit. You want to open up the grooves, those open spaces between they're called intercostal spaces in between the rib bones. Reaching back up to center.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
That was my watch, sorry. And exhale, reaching forward. Just to the point where your hips are still grounded. Beautiful. Very well. Now we're going to move into a couple of cat-cows to get started as we warm up the back and warm up the spine. And place my cushion to the side. And I'm going to come into tabletop. So as you come into tabletop, you're just going to keep the knees into the mat. If you have any issues with knees and they're sensitive or you have tight joints, then modify when needed. You don't have to come into tabletop, which is what we're going to go into next. But if you have any knee issues, feel free to do cat-cow by sitting down. You can sit down by doing cat-cow by taking a deep breath in. Chest comes out, and you're going to expand the lungs. And as you exhale, you're going to round the back around the spine. Well, guess what? We're doing the same exact concept, but a different position when you're doing it on the ground and you're in tabletop. If you have no knee issues, then let's move into cat-cow. So as you come into cat-cow, again, you want to have your knees comfortably into the mat, and you want to, I'm so tongue-tied here, arch your back, arch your spine, so also known as sticking out your seat. So stick out your seated bones, your bum, and you want to use your finger pads or palm pads, spread your fingers apart. That's what's going to help support your wrist, and without using the wrist directly, you can use your palm pads and finger pads, which is much more cushion and a good way to practice safe body alignment. That's the biggest #1 piece in yoga. And your knees are going to be hip distance apart, so at the distance of, at the same width as your hips. Wrists are under your shoulders, and elbows in a nice soft bend. Tap the back of your feet into the mat, and we're going to lower down. Reach your forearms into the mat. Take a deep breath in, expand the lungs, and as if you are going to say a moo. That's why we call it a cow pose. So it's cow pose. Look up without extending the neck. And exhale. Round the spine, round the back as you come into cat pose. Cat pose is rounding the spine, swaying side to side. Inhale here again. Stick out your seat. And then exhale, round the spine, pulling the heart forward. Bring awareness into your breath. So find where your breath is. Inhale here, look up. And exhale, round the spine. Beautiful. Now we're going to come into thread the eye of the needle. One of my favorites that I always like to keep in all of my sequences whenever I teach a class on any level, because when you work on a shoulder press and a chest opener, it really helps improve and increase the ability to breathe and moving into deeper breaths rather than shallow breathing. Because every day we're inundated in our schedule and we're just trying to get from one place to another, but we really don't take that time to just breathe in between our activities or in between our things that we have to do on a day-to-day. So, coming into thread the eye of the needle, we're going to be in, you're going to sit down, sitting on your heels like in Virasana, and you're going to place one palm at the top of the mat, and then the other palm is diagonal under. So the shorter palm or the shorter arm is going to be the first one that's going to reach up to the ceiling. You're going to stack your shoulder. This is an intense pose, so be careful. If you notice any resistance in your muscles or in your body in the way that it wants to increase like range of motion, just back away and listen to your body, because only you know, okay? So one palm at the top of the mat. I'll start off with my right side, which may be your left side because if I'm mirroring you. And as you take a deep breath and expand the lungs, you're going to align your breath with stacking the shoulder. Reach your right arm up or left. You want to keep both knees into the mat, and you want to keep your hips squared, meaning that the hips stay where they are. You don't try not to lift one hip with the other. And as you exhale, you're going to scoop your arm all the way through until the shoulder meets the mat. So until your shoulder comes down onto the mat, you're going to lift up from your seat. Do you see my seat? Lift it up. You want to then lower down the seat so that way you can squeeze into the area that's tight, that you can open up into the hip flexors. So exhale here. Inhale back up again. Reach fingertips up towards the ceiling. And exhale. Scoop your arm all the way through until the shoulder meets the mat. Until you have no more breath to give. Inhale back up again. One last time. Exhale, scoop your arm all the way through. This time you want to stay here. Lower down your seat. We're going to be here for about 4 full breaths. You can deepen your practice here. Deepen the challenge by placing your front palm behind your back. But to do this in the best possible way that is the safest, you want to make sure that all the weight is shifted towards the hips so you're sitting on your heels. You don't want to have any heaviness in the ear because then you're shifting the weight towards the upper body when you want to shift it towards the lower. So as you're staying here, it's like listening into the earth, reconnecting, regrounding, and just listening into a different space, bringing awareness and attention into a different space than what you would usually do at this time. Stay here, 3 more breaths. And while you're in thread the eye of the needle, I'm going to check in to see if anyone else joins. Hi, Dennis. All right. 2 more breaths. Move with the breath. So you want to really take the time and focus on the breath. That is the most important piece as you're coming into different poses, because you want to make sure that the breath is opening and expanding areas and also sinking into areas of the deeper tissues and the organs. If you notice your seat is way too high, try to lower it down. 1 more breath here. On the next in-breath, return back to hands and knees by unscooping your arm. We're now going to come into a couple of cat-cows just to release any tension we might have picked up, and then we're going to come into rounding the hips, okay? So, cat-cow, you can start off with the cow as you expand the lungs. Inhale here, lifting up. Look up and exhale. Pull the heart forward and let the head sink. And just fall. And again, another cat-cow. Beautiful. Very nice. And round the hips, 1 full circle. You can start off with clockwise or counterclockwise. I started with counterclockwise. I started with clockwise. I'm opposite here as you. And now we're just going to switch sides. All right. So if you started off with the right side, we're now going to shift to the left. 1 palm at the top of the mat, and the other palm is diagonal. Knees are hip distance apart, directly under your hips. You want to readjust your position here because we may have done some shifting of the weight and moving into a different space while we were coming into thread the eye of the needle. So you want to reset and readjust. And the shorter palm, of course, shorter arm, you're going to raise up and stack the shoulder. Take a deep breath in. Inhale here. Try to keep the hips squared, which means they are grounded. Exhale here. Scoop the arm all the way through until the shoulder meets the mat. And you have no more breath to give. Inhale back up again. Very cleansing to the lungs. Exhale here, especially when you're coming into a position like this. Because you're bringing the lungs forward towards the ground. Inhale back up again. Beautiful. Very nice. Now we're going to stay here for 4 full breaths. And as you stay here, I'd like you to just notice any sensations that may be different or the same. than when you were on the other side. You can deepen your stretch or your practice by placing the front palm behind your back, and make sure if you do that, you want to shift the weight again towards the hips, so that way you're not using any, you're not feeling heavy in the head where you're using your weight in the head to hold your position, okay? This here also increases your core, improves the strength of your core, especially when you're bringing awareness into the breath because you're expanding your lungs. 2 more breaths here. On the next in-breath, unscoop your arm, return back to hands and knees, and we're going to come into cat-cow again. Come into cat-cow however many or little times that you'd like to come into. Just want to warm up the spine. Notice any tight areas and release here. And you're moving into a slower, deeper breath. You want to soften the breath here. Empty and release. Drawing the belly in towards the spine. And rounding the hips again. 1 full circle. And as you round the hips in this position, it's really nice because you're actually moving into the hamstring and also the legs and the thighs. It's really nice to come into these rounding hip practice. Very well. Now we're going to come into one of our favorites, and that is child pose. Feel free to come into child pose to break in between your poses as many times or as little times as you'd like. I never see enough of child pose. So there are a couple of child poses. Also, if you have there are a couple ways of doing child pose, and the main usual way is having your knees apart, and again, 1 big toe over the other. You want to keep your feet connected with each other, and then as you keep the hips open by opening up through the knees, you're going to lower yourself down. Now, if this is too tight for you and this is not comfortable for you, feel free to come into another way of child pose, but they also call it another pose, and that is rabbit pose. So that is when your knees are together and you're going to lower yourself down. And as a rabbit, you're going to hold on to your heels because that's what helps you increase the amount of, improve your core here, and also it keeps you in a steady position where you're aligning the breath. So holding on to your heels, chest right over the knees. Sometimes you may feel heaviness where you're not able to balance yourself, or you feel like you're going to topple over. If you do that, then come into a classic child pose, and that's when your knees are apart. So again, knees apart, reach your fingertips up towards the top of the mat. Really deepen that stretch, and guess what's going to open up the breath? It's not the pose, it's actually the breath is what's opening up these any tight spaces that you may have. This here in the child pose is really nice because it helps release any tension or any discomfort, any tightness, because the hips become tight over time, especially if you're sitting in one certain position for a long period of time. That's why whenever it's very healthy to and effective for your body and mental health wise to get up and take some breaks between your activities or during your activities like work. And breathe here. Take a deep breath in again, using your palm pads rather than the wrist. One more breath here. And slowly walk your hands up towards your hips. Now, if you have a bolster, also known as a yoga pillow. Oops, sorry. If you have a bolster, also known as a yoga pillow, or if you have a body pillow or even a cushion seat like what I have here, Place it in front of you, and I'm going to show you a restorative child pose. And if you've been in my class before, then you know exactly what we're talking about, which is one of my favorites because it allows you to just really surrender into a space where you have a support underneath you, and that's the cushion, right? So, just going to move my mat a little bit over. You're going to need a little bit more space when you have a cushion. And what we're going to do is, the usual bolster that I have, which is awesome because it's like the size of your entire upper body and torso, right? This is a smaller version, but that's okay. We will work with what we have. And you're going to place the corners of the cushion or your pillow. You could even use just a regular bed pillow or sleeping pillow. And place it between your thighs. All right, and as you do this, you're going to really adjust or readjust any areas that you may feel tightness when you're opening up the knees, okay? Because as you're coming into this pose, we're going to be here for several breaths, and several meaning more than 7, so maybe about 1.5 to 2 minutes. And we're going to now come down, lowering down, and take a deep breath in, arms up. And as you exhale, lower down, and as you lower the body down, you're going to exhale and surrender here. Sometimes we have a tough time or challenging time to be able to surrender, and that's okay. It could be something as very small and minor that you have trouble letting go of something, or it could be even a bigger thing. But even if you don't feel like you want to let anything go, believe me, your body is going to let go when you're in a certain pose or position and you're releasing through the breath. Eyes closed, and place one cheek onto the bolster or pillow and stay here. You're grounding your hips down towards the earth by using the strength of planting your palms into the mat. So when you're actually trying this, you'll know exactly what I'm speaking on or referring to, because you're actually using the gravity to be able to push down your seat, and this also opens up your hip flexors, which is always wonderful to keep the hips open and fluid and just keeping it from getting tight over time. So we'll be here for several breaths. Now, keep in mind, if you're not taking any deep breaths, then this is not yoga. I don't know what practice you're doing, what practice we're doing if we're not using the breath. So definitely stay with your breath. And study your breath. Scan through the body what's going on as you're taking these deep breaths. Inhale here. And this is a perfect time to have your ocean waves or any Tibetan singing bowls or any vibrational sounds, because that also helps release any tension or cloudiness in the brain. Move slow with the breath, soft and deep. Inhale. And you may even notice that your hips are going to open up more and more as you're moving deeper into the breath with the amount of, with the number of breaths. And when you are ready, turn your cheek to the other side. You can also place a block right in front of you to support your head. Deep breaths here. Couple more breaths. And again, the more breaths you're taking in this one pose with restorative or with supportive child pose, it really allows your hip bones to relax and your hip flexors to open up more the deeper that you go in with the breath, the amount of breaths. One more breath here. Very nice. Go ahead and remove the block if you have a block in front of you, and keep the bolster or the pillow in front of you, and you're going to walk your hands gently back towards your hips. You're going to take your seat and return back to your heels. Hopefully your one toe is over the other and that your feet are still connected in the same space. You may have done some moving while you're in supportive child pose. Remove the pillow or bolster or cushion away and slowly, gently bring your knees together. And while you're sitting on your heels, you want to just come back and release, coming back into tabletop, you want to release some tensions that you may have, that you may want to let go of as well, or you may have picked up. Beautiful. Now, it looks like we're ready to come into a quick flow. I always like to bring a quick flow of a sun salutation or moon salutation while we're in a yin practice. And I like to do this because it allows the hips to even open up more and allows you to move, to use every part of your body during your yoga practice. All right, so fingers spread apart. You want to continue to practice that through your practice no matter what pose you come into, because you're protecting your wrists and you're using safe body alignment. Fingers are spread apart, and you want to keep the shoulders away from the ears as you lift up through your toes. You're going to tuck your toes, lift up through your seat, and come into downward facing dog. Now, as you're coming into downward dog, you want to push away at the earth using your palm pad. So pretend like you're on this like surfboard, and you're pushing away with your palms. And as you're grounding down, planting your palms into the mat, you're creating a little bit of resistance and intensity, which is nice to be able to open up any tightness in the hamstrings. During your down dog, a lot of people like to focus just on the hamstring, but we want to focus on the thighs and the hamstring as well as the hips and the upper body. Shake your head now. Nod your head yes. Looking into your belly towards the other side of the room, you're going to look and tuck your chin in. And as you tuck the chin in, you're actually creating more space in the arch of your spine or arch of your back. All right? Now I'd like you to stack your hip by placing one leg up, bend the knee, and rotate the ankle, rotate the thigh, rotate the knee, and then switch to the other side. Balance your practice by going one way and then the other direction. And lower it down, inhale up again, the other side. Take a deep breath in, rotate the ankle, rotate the thigh, rotate the knee, and then the other side. And lower back down. Walk your feet up towards the top of your mat. And as you do this, it's like an elephant walk. Slow and big steps, right? And we're going to hug opposite elbows. Now, you're going to hinge forward while you're here in this position, because when you're hinging forward, you're allowing the upper body to independently come down, like as if you're folding a chair, like one of those foldable chairs, or you're like taking one piece of paper and folding it in half. Now you want to ground down through your heels. So make sure your heels are the heaviest point of the body. It's the only thing that is planting down and grounding with the earth. Hugging opposite elbows. Bring it forward and back. Your toes can be free. You can lift the toes up. Just make sure your heels are grounding down. Heaviest point. All right. Drop the palms or hands down. Inhale, halfway. Look up in front of you. What do you see? Exhale, fold over. Walk your hand or raise your arms up as you come into Tadasana. And in your Tadasana is also known as your mountain pose. And arch the back, arch the spine. And coming into Samasthiti, which is hands at heart. You can place your hands at prayer or just set the intention to place them right at the heart. We're going to dive down again. Reach your arms all the way up again, up towards the ceiling. And dive down. And as you dive down, you're going to bring your arms down, what we call swan dive. And now we're going to come into plank. We're going to place both of our feet together towards the back of the mat. And now we're going to move into downward facing dog. Warming up the spine, warming up the back. We're now going to raise your right or your left leg. Bring it forward to the top of the mat as we come into Hatha lunge or crescent lunge. There are many names to it. Your back heel's off the mat and your front foot is right in front of you. You may feel like you're a little bit out of balance, and that's always a good thing. It means that your body is very well aware of your surrounding at this point in time. All right, so with your back heel off the mat, raising your arms up, reach them up, take a deep breath in. And exhale, bring your knee down. And if you have any sensitivity to the knee, you can keep it up. Either way, we're going to come into now Anjaneyasana. And in Anjaneyasana, you don't want your knee past the ankle, but you want to feel a really nice deep stretch into the hip flexors. Opening up, arms out, lift back up through the back knee. Place, if you're on the right side, place your left palm next to your right foot. And we're going to raise and stack that shoulder. Now, this is the tough part. You want to balance your Hatha twist. We're now in a Hatha twist. And in your Hatha twist, you're doing a twist through the top arm. It's like placing, like in geometry, one line straight down, and that's through the shoulder, stacking the top shoulder on top of the bottom. Be here for 2 breaths. One more breath here. Try to keep the weight steady between both legs. All right, exhale. Both palms are at the top of the mat. Bring your front foot back. We're now going to come into a plank. So as you bring forward your upper body, you're going to come into a plank. You want to balance your plank. You can either come down into a chaturanga through your knees, or classic way, lowering down. You want to keep the shoulders above the elbows. Come into cobra. Cobra is where your belly's off the mat and you're squeezing the hell out of your glute, your bum. Keep the shoulders squared in front of you, chest up. Roll those shoulders back, tuck your toes again into downward facing dog. Inhale, right leg up. Exhale, bring it forward again to the top of the mat. We're now going to come into standing split. Lift up that back leg for that standing split moment. For that split moment. And you can use a block to support you. That's what's going to increase your strength and flexibility by using props. And as you exhale, bring that back foot to meet up with the top foot. Inhale, halfway look up. Exhale, fold over. Wrap your hands around your shins or ankles. Raise your arms up into Tadasana. And hands at heart. One more dive down. Reaching your arms out in front of you and arching the spine and dive down. Beautiful. Now, we're just going to switch sides. So, come back to plank. And as you come back to plank, you want to come now into downward facing dog. Shake your head no. Nod your head yes. Now we're going to inhale the other leg up. So if you were on your right, now it's time to switch to the left. Exhale, bring it forward to the top of the mat. Adjust your back foot so that way your heel's off the mat. Raise your arms up. Keep a bend in the front knee. Coming into Anjaneyasana. Increase the flexibility through the hips by bending through the hips. And raise your back knee up. Very nice. And now you want to place your right palm next to your left foot. Raising it up, you're going to stack the shoulder. Again, stacking the shoulder. You're now in a hatha twist. Exhale here. Bring both palms at the top of the mat. Front foot comes back. And now you're going to come into a plank. Exhale, lower down. Go and answer it. And now, coming into Cobra, chest comes up, tuck your toes back into downward facing dog, come into a standing split. Lift left leg up, bring it forward to the top of the mat, lift up through the back leg, and exhale, right foot to meet up with the left, or left foot to meet up with the right. Inhale, halfway look up. Exhale, round your hands or wrap your hands behind your ankles. And again, be creative in where you want to be with Tadasana, mountain pose. Anywhere your body wants to lead you and where you feel you want to be. Now let's come into, I'm going to step out of my mat. We're now going to come into diving down, lower down, and back up again. Reverse swan is when you bring the arms out to the side, lifting up above your head, and back down. Very nice. Now we're going to come back into plank. So both feet comes back. And now you're going to come into downward facing dog. Let's now take a seat from where you were in your down dog. Very nice. You are more than halfway through. I always like to spend a lot of time in walking through different poses and knowing and understanding the rationale behind it, but I know that time flies by so fast when you're teaching a 1-hour yoga class, right? So now, as I'm bringing the mat a little bit closer, hopefully you can see me okay, we're going to come into a seated forward fold. And in the seated forward fold, you're just taking a seat. You want to have both of your seated bones evenly onto the ground, into the earth. Raise your arms up. Take a deep breath in. You're going to lengthen through your spine. And when you do this, you're actually lifting up from the ab. You're lifting up from your belly. Exhale. Bring both arms down, reaching towards the back of your feet. The back of your feet. like the ball of your feet, or you can actually tuck your fingers or hands underneath the ankles if you don't want to reach all the way down. This pose is not about how low you can go down, but where you are what do you notice and what do you experience when you're coming into a stretch. You could just be halfway from here, from the top, and not spine too. You could also come into peace fingers. Take your peace fingers and wrap around your big toe. Beautiful. Now, we're going to move towards the front. And here, we're going to open up through the hips. And the safest way that I like to come into when I open up at the hips is lifting up through the seat as much as possible. Lifting up again. Breathe here. You're going to take 1 or 2 blocks or whatever props that you have to help you, and we're going to open up the third eye. One of my favorites, again, to do in a yin practice is to bring in a practice of heightening and increasing your intuition. And to do so, you're going to use the space between your eyebrows. You're going to press into the space lightly. And you're going to, I see Samantha wants to join in this practice too. And we're going to take 1 or 2 blocks, and you're just going to use the space between the eyebrows. You're not going to press or lay or put your weight of the forehead into the block. You just want to be soft in this practice because the heaviest point is your seat. The heaviest point is your root, the root chakra. You're activating the root chakra as you're placing or planting your seat down, and both of your seated bones are evenly into the ground. Both hands, both palms are flat onto the ground. You're going to flex your feet. Try not to point it. You want to flex your feet so that way your hips are safe. This is definitely a tight position that you can be in because your legs are open and spread out, and you're actually as you count deeper into your breaths, you're going to start to sink the joints and bones deeper into the ground. And as you do this, and as you know, you'll notice some intensity through the breath because you're sitting for such a period of a certain amount of time or a long period of time into the earth. Deep breaths. Exhale here. The more you're heightening and increasing the intuition through the pituitary gland, the pineal gland, also known as the third eye, you're actually allowing yourself to trust your gut more and more. For some reason, humans have a tendency to go against their gut feeling and go with their mind or go with whatever they're thinking that they want to do, but it's something in the intuition that is kind of nudging you and saying, hey, be careful because you could be in danger, or just to caution you. However, I learned that animals are able to go with their instinct confidently. So it's always nice to be able to increase that, the strength of your intuition. I'm going to be here for a few more breaths, trying to keep track of time here. On your next inhale, we're now going to lift lift ourselves up and away from the block. Now it looks like we're running out of time, as I usually tend to do, which is always a good thing because I always have so much to teach and practice with you. We're going to go into Shavasana, but I'm going to leave that as very little time because you can spend all the time in your evening to come into Shavasana, okay? what we're going to do is now come into lying on our back. So we're going to bring our legs together. We're going to roll back and hug the knees. Kissing one knee with the other, hug one knee with the other. And you're going to interlace your fingers together and hug the knees so your knees are touching your chest. You're going to rock side to side, side to side. And you're going to roll over to one side. And you're going to straighten out the bottom leg and reach the top leg over or the knee over. You're going to reach for your top big toe. All right, so as you reach for the top big toe, you're now stacking the hip, one hip on top of the other. Raise your upper arm and place it behind or next to you. And that's what's going to anchor you down and grounding into the earth. And you're actually in a balanced space because you've got one arm on one side and the other leg on the other side. Pure balance. Roll over back to center. And we're going to do so on the other side. You can probably see me better if I show you on this side. We're going to rock side to side, massaging the low back with hugging the knees. Roll over to that other side. Straighten out the bottom leg. Reach your top big toe to meet with the bottom hands. You don't have to touch it. You could just be close to it. And then as the last final step, you're going to place that upper arm, opening up, stretching the area of the lymph nodes, of the lymph, the lymph tissue. And this is a nice way to stretch and break into any tight spaces here too. Two more breaths. All right, now we're going to return back on our back and we're going to right away move into Shavasana. But tonight we're going to work on Shavasana since I have this wall right in front of me. And that is Viparita Karini. So if you're close to a wall, access your wall that has no obstacles or objects in your way. And you want to swing your legs over to the wall. And as you swing your legs up on the wall, usually what you do is you want to be at the ledge of the wall. And as you sit down at the ledge of the wall, you then can swing your legs up and you're inverting your heart this way. One of the nicest and most relaxing way to end your evening and also helps improve your sleep. Helps deepen the comfort of your sleep and of course improves your REM sleep. Arms are out to the side. This is now a good time to play some nice Shavasana music. You've now reached the final step in your journey this evening. Think about what brought you here to this very moment in your practice, giving yourself a break from your day-to-day. Be here for several breaths. And since we're running out of time, I'm going to let you stay in Shavasana, keeping your feet together. You can feel free to open them up as well. So bringing the knees or apart or the feet apart into like a V. You can also bring the soles of your feet together, having the knees out. And as I leave you here, I'd like to leave you with a way that you can give yourself some affirmation, feed yourself with some positive affirmations, And as you complete your practice, and don't rush to complete your class, I may leave you, but you can still be in your space of your final pose, and that is Shavasana. And at the end of your journey, starting a new one, I'd like you to feed yourself with anything from I am light, I am strong, I am healthy, I am grateful, I am enough. Tell yourself any and all the things beautiful and all that you have, not to focus on what you don't have, but just to focus on what you have is just enough, and it is all you need. Couple more breaths here. And as I roll over, stay in your Shavasana position or pose. As I give you a closing, we come to a close, and after you finish with Shavasana, feel free to also end your practice with an Om. You can whisper the Om, you can sigh your Om, you can breathe out your Om, you can sing your Om. Make it beautiful, make it meaningful, make it as if it's your very last Om. You should take a deep breath in. Bow down. Giving thanks to the earth for its light, its gifts, its breath, prana. Namaste. Thank you so much for joining me.